Well, I think you might be a boot artist. So when I took a look at this again with the same as looking at the picture of Baloo, I just kind of said, oh my gosh, wow, look at this. I pulled up a copy of what we did the week before, or 2 weeks ago maybe. So we've got something to compare them to. And they're very different in some ways, very similar in other ways. Let's take a look. First, what you did this week. Very, very nicely done. I think you must have watched the little bit of a video on wrinkles and creases and thinking about how the light hits them. Because when I look at this, I can see you see where the light hits there, and then it gets a little bit darker, and then average again, and then light, and then very gradually to dark. So you have this really nice feel for the curve coming out and in and out and out and in. As you come down this curve here, you've also got the same wrinkles down here. You saw how there was a really deep shadow there, and then it got lighter, and then so softly and gradually got a little bit like into a medium shade, and it mimics exactly some of the creases that you've got on the boot on the old one too. So I can see you're really working on seeing how the light hits the wrinkles in the toe box, how the light hits the higher points and then creates shadows in kind of like the little valleys. This, just look at the dimension right in here. You really nailed it. I mean, if you looked at nothing else in this whole picture, oh my gosh, you've got this little bit of a dark place right in here, kind of medium, where it's inside between these two flaps. You've got the nice even value there, and then how really dark you went inside the eyelets really gives you that 3D feel. And then that is darker than what the laces are because that's deep in shadow. So you really have a dimension there. And then when I'm looking at this too, I see how this wrinkle kind of gets carried all the way up through, kind of like when you're walking. It bends the boot and gives you that crease right there, and I can see it carries all the way up into there. But oh, this is just beautiful in here. It's so 3D. Nice. What I liked up here when I saw this, I saw your lace had a little boop, and what made it so it made it a little bit uneven, and that's kind of a nice, unique little touch to it. That everything down here, everything is tightly laced up, and then you have this one little looser lace at the top, kind of gives it a little bit added interest. I suppose if you wanted to really challenge yourself as you're going along with this, you can loosen these up so that there's a lot of loops down here too, and see what that does to your brain when you try to draw all those things. That'll kind of change how it feels. This is lovely too. I see the lace comes down, hits the surface, and then comes out, and you've got this beautiful little shadow going along here, and then down at the bottom too. That gives it some added dimension and a nice feel to your picture. The heel, we talked a little bit about this last week, how this seemed like a little abrupt in there, and you've changed that. This has a real feel to it, just a very solid feel now. We talked about this curve last week, how that was a little bit, that probably should have been more defined, especially since the value of the boot is kind of dark. And look at this is just beautiful. It comes in and then out and then back in again. You really have the feeling that there's a heel that would fit in that boot, and then it gets narrow up here into the ankle, and then the base of the sole of the boot does come out a little bit, and you've got this just nice anchored feel to it as it goes down here. And then the difference between the top and the bottom, you have a really nice shadow that goes along there, and that gives you the feeling that you've got this crease in there that it goes in deeper, so that it's hard to get a just 3D feel here, but it goes into the boot and then comes back out, so you have this deep shadow in there. Nice job on these, on where the two pieces of the boot come together, and you have this little, just a teeny, ever so slight little place where it comes out here that gives you the feeling that this is an added piece added onto here, so it's going to extend out this way a little more. So it's just a nice little piece out there that you put in there. Let's see what else. Okay, so we're still working on getting the feeling that it's that the Cordova or cordovan, I can't remember what you said it was, that deep shade. Squinting at it, you probably could even go a shade deeper. I'm almost thinking that this shade in here and this shade here could go a little bit deeper in some different places in the boot. Again, a really nice job with that little tab in the back. You've got that nailed down. when I look at the toe, I see a difference between the two toes. So you have to decide when you look at your real boot which of these is the real one. This one kind of slants down and is very rounded, just kind of like a very round hill, and this one comes out and comes straight down. So I'm not sure what the real shape of the boot is, and you'll just have to decide what the toe box is like on your real boot. If it's that deep from top to bottom, or if it's a little shallower like that one, like this one suggests. This one's not quite as deep from top to bottom. One of the things I noticed here, and again, we're just going to get into some really picky stuff because this is just pushing forward just a little bit more on the boot. This comes out and then it slants back in. You can see in the back this is perfectly vertical, and I'm wondering if this part should be perfectly vertical too, or if it does slant in, and that's something you have to look at when you look at the real boot, or if it comes out and then should have just a little bit of an angle there where it kind of disappears around the corner. So that's just something to think about. If this is a black sole on your boot, then don't be afraid to just go super black. You want a little bit darker here. Of course, the whole value on this one was darker, and so that it was natural for the sole to go darker. The tone of the whole one here is lighter, so maybe that's why this one just looks a little lighter here. It does get dark up at the front here, and I don't know if that's the true value or if that's just because it's taking the curve going around the front of the boot. This is something else I want to point out. This really gives you the feel that that this takes the corner, and that this is a thing that kind of curves away. You want a little darker here, and that definitely gives you the feel of this curving. Darker, all the way down here. You've made them all darker, so it has a lot of dimension here. I think on one of your past boots too, you got a little bit darker here, and you got a feel for the fact that this kind of curved away from you. And as you're working on these wrinkles, don't be afraid, because this is a dark boot and probably up against a light background, don't be afraid to darken it up to where the edge is, so that we can really read. That will really help these wrinkles show up, not only drawing the light part at the very top of them where the light is really hitting, but if you darken these up a little bit around where they take the corner or take the edge, not a dark line like a coloring book, but just bring the value darker, and make sure there's a definite line where that boot ends, just like you did over here, so that we can definitely tell the outline of that boot. This is definitely a darker boot up against a lighter background. Here, you focused a lot on the wrinkles here, but make sure you also show where the edge of those wrinkles are. Boy, I just keep looking at this, and this just looks fantastic, how that really turned out right there. And then I see you've got some places in the lace where it looks a little darker and a little lighter, and that kind of helps give dimension to because even though this is a skinny little thing that you're drawing, there's going to be places on it where they're lighter and darker too. Beautiful job on where these seams are, getting all the seams in all the right places. You can see there was a darker shadow there too. Nicely done. Gonna be a boot artist, Joey. So yeah, we'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk this over. Also, one more thing is, as you're looking at the boot, if this is truly black, if that's a really dark sole in the boot, then there's probably going to be a shadow under here. It may not be as light. This is lighter than the boot, so I would say the shadow has to be going from darkest to lightest. You'd have super dark value on the sole, and then a darker value on the boot, and then maybe a medium one or a shade lighter than the boot right in here to show the depth, to show the shading and the shadow. Also take a look to see, depending where your light source is, you may see just a little sliver of shadows here as you go along, and that'll just help make it feel like it's really resting on a surface. Well done, another nice boot. Congratulations. We'll talk to you soon.